With the NFL draft just around the corner, we have a crop of new rookie tight ends to be looking at for our fancy purposes. And it's been hit after hit after hit, year after year after year so far when it comes to our rookie tight ends. Ed, will that continue with the 2026 draft class?
Well, there are some interesting prospects, but I don't think we have a Brock Bowers or a Sam Laporta on our hands this year. But first up, I've gone for the man who seems to be the consensus number one rookie tight end across the board, with a few exceptions, and that is Kenyon Sadiq coming out of Oregon. Now, he certainly lacks the dazzling college stats that you might have expected, but he managed 11 yards per reception and 8 touchdowns in 2025. Very much kind of a product of the scheme he was in Oregon, I think, in terms of the lack of standout stats that you might have hoped for. He is an absolute stud of an athlete, as you would hope for your number one tight end. He ran his 40-yard dash at the combine, got everyone talking, as he ran it in 4.39, which is phenomenal for someone at 6'3" and 240 pounds. He can absolutely glide past tackles in the tape that I've seen. I've really enjoyed watching him, actually. Maybe his footwork might be an issue at NFL level. He doesn't quite kind of have the step that you might want for someone, like for the position that tight end has become in the NFL. So that's something, but I think that's something that can be coached, and it's something that he can work on. In terms of where he's going to go, probably going to be a day one pick. He could, if someone's willing to take the punt, he could go top 20. But he's maybe going to drop further down that first round board. I think he'll drop far enough down the board where maybe someone who you're not expected to take him just goes, well, I can't let him drop. He's someone that we've got to go for, even if we weren't initially in for a tight end. So possibly that might happen. Like I say, impressive. Looked good at the combine, and I think he's someone who will go on and have a solid career. Not a Brock Bowers, not a Sam Laporta. So I don't expect him to be a rookie sensation, but I think he will have a solid rookie season from a fantasy perspective, landing spot dependent.
Yeah, I'm not banking on him being the next year one fancy tight end or NFL tight end that we see great things from. I think he's definitely someone a year or two down the line. He was really impressive at the combine, but we need to remind ourselves this because we saw Xavier Worthy, we saw Matthew Golden do it as well. It's not easy, but it's easier to look impressive running in a straight line with no pads on and no one trying to stop you and crash into you to take a ball from you. That's not what actually happens on the field. Yes, from an athletic point of view, it shows his capabilities, but it's not the be-all and end-all of that. One quote about him that I thought really sums him up well when you see just how physical he is at the catch point and getting through defenders as well, is someone said he vandalizes defensive seams.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I just explained it because he looks like a piece of work when it comes to the way he treats defenders, really. He just really does get physical. He seems to thrive and really enjoy that contact as well. I think my worry is you're looking at where he's going in drafts at the moment, and you're seeing him going around somewhere between the 106 to the 108, and you think that's far too high for what I said. But you look at who else is there, and it sort of makes sense. If we dropped him in last year's draft class or the draft class year before, it's probably definitely end of round 1, early round 2. But you're going to have to take him in a similar place to where we've taken some of these. You look at where Warren and Loveland were going last year. They weren't going much higher than that, and we felt far more confident they would perform than Sadiq. But they also had a lot of all the running backs that were going off the board in round 1 as well. We've just not got the same number of players we're confident in this year. And that's where people are going to take the gamble on Sadiq. He's the best tight end available. Let's go for, potentially depending how we feel about the next player we're about to talk to. I'm not sure where else to go. And I think that recency bias of people thinking, do you know what, tight ends have done it year after year after year recently. after we'd had years of never gamble on a rookie tight end, I think that might make people reach from a little bit more. Before we move on, if you are new to us, please do give us a subscribe, a like, and a share for all our content through the season and the off season as well. Ed, who is your tight end 2? And some people started to give a little bit of tight end 1 chat.
Indeed, yeah. As I say, Sadiq was the consensus if you look across draft boards. But so this player, Eli Stowers, is someone who's starting to creep up boards. Now, unlike Sadiq, Eli Stowers had a phenomenal 2025, racked up 1,400 yards and 9 touchdowns for Vanderbilt. And considering he was their only real offensive threat that defense had to deal with, I think that makes it even more impressive that he had such an impressive set of figures. He's like Sadiq, he's an absolute athletic freak, phenomenal hands, makes life very difficult defenders wherever he lines up, and he's incredibly difficult to bring down. He just seems to drag defenders along with him. Natural route runner, which is something that will, really pique the interest of offensive coordinators. When it comes to weaknesses, one word: blocking. He is almost invisible. And for that reason, he's more like a wide receiver to me in terms of how he will be defended against. He's not a threat at all in the run game, and he's going to put off a lot of NFL coaches. I've heard him described, and this is not a kind description, as a liability, and you don't want to be described as a liability. That is not promising, because you want your tight end to be able to block. I mean, it's something that maybe has slightly gone out of the tight end game over the last few years, but your elite tight ends can still block, even if it's not to a phenomenal level that they can block. But Stowers, doesn't even try. He just he's pretty non-existent. He's somebody I'd be very surprised to see go day 1. I think he's going to be a more later day 2 pick. I've seen him linked with the likes of Denver, who are linked with a lot of tight ends, as are Philadelphia, as are Miami. And his slightly one-dimensional profile might put off a number of teams. I'm not sure he's someone who would be fantasy relevant. But when we look at the tight end landscape at the moment, there are a number of prospects, but in that kind of second, third tier, there are gaps for tight ends to come in and make a case to be your fantasy starter. So again, wherever he ends up will have a big impact on that. So yeah, he's someone who I liked watching. But I do worry that head coaches and general managers might be a bit wary of him with his non-existent blocking game.
He does feel at times like he's coasting, and like you said of Sadiq, that he glides past players. I'm using coasting as a far more negative term here, because he just doesn't look fully committed to his plays. So I've got to look at that from 2 points of view. Is that because college football is just too easy for him? He doesn't need to put effort. He doesn't want to risk getting injured before the NFL. Or is it just a work rate concern? And like you said, for the blocking, just can't be bothered. I don't want to get hit. I'm not going to do that. And that will get found out very, very quickly. And that's where you see players disappearing very quickly from rosters, isn't it? So hopefully that isn't what we see. He's currently projected to go around pick 54. So as you said, that looking middle of the second round, that could be anybody, really. I think it's quite tricky to choose where he's going to go there. When we're looking at our next picks, though, we've got a batch of 3 that I do wonder whether, in the same vein as we had like Ronde Gadsden and players like that last year, whether one of these might just kind of make themselves a bit more known over the course of the season. Who do you want to talk about first, your tight end 3?
I'm sure they will do. And a bit like the running backs, the next 3 could have come in any order, but I've gone for tight end 3. I've gone for Max Klare, the 22-year-old coming out of Ohio State. Nothing that stands out from a college perspective in 2025. He managed just 53 receptions and 2 touchdowns in an admittedly very high-powered Ohio State offense with a lot of work to share around. He's very athletic, very good after the catch, just a solid tight end option who's a good route runner, knows how to get open. He's 6'4", so decent height, and it will be a threat. He's a competent blocker, and he's got no glaring deficiencies. However, there's nothing in his game that kind of jumps off the page. I mean, the best that you can say, I think Fantasy Sanctuary have said this, is that he's just good in all areas, which is not a bad thing at all. But he just is not a standout in any area. So I don't know if he's going to be somebody that will garner the interest to certainly go in the first couple of rounds. I think he's someone who's going to be, third, fourth round pick maybe. Could see him ending up somewhere like the Chiefs maybe, who are looking to mould the next Kelsey. He could be a jack of all trades, and he could end up being like Gadsden, a solid fancy prospect. But he also could be someone who just gets a bit lost in the mix and struggles to make that step up. I'm just a bit undecided about Klare at the moment, what his kind of long-term prospects as a fantasy tight end are going to be.
Yeah, there's that language around him, like you said, being described as good in lots of areas. But I think there's one of the people I saw talking about him said about how he does this here and there. He can do this. He's capable of that. And it's like which of those does he do well? I want to hear is a solid. This is a top tier. This does this to an elite, and we were getting none of that. So yeah, as you say, is he just his cap is going to always be quite good and therefore not relevant to fantasy, especially when tight end is so difficult to call fantasy anyway, or is he able to take that step up? The one thing that does stand out for him is his separation burst across the field sometimes creates that real chunk play opportunity, which is where I think he could get a good spike week here or there over the course of the season, which for me is got someone I've got in mind in my deeper best ball drafts is someone then that might be an interesting punt on if he's got that in his locker to have that big week once or twice in the season. But yeah, he's not a player you're picking up for this year, is he? He's certainly someone to stick on your taxi squad and see what comes year 2, year 3. Next up then, who are we going to go to?
Well, next up, I'm actually quite excited about, and I think he has a potential huge upside, and that's Sam Roush, an absolutely impressive physical specimen, 6'6", 267 pounds. Now, he's played in a very underwhelming Stanford offense. So, any hope for big numbers in the NFL is based on projection rather than hard evidence, because he's had fewer than 90 receptions and just 4 touchdowns in the last 2 seasons with Stanford. But he's a great blocker. That will keep him on the pitch, which is really important. If he's on the pitch, he can catch the ball. But yeah, he will. NFL coaches will like him, and he will. Someone will pick him up, and he will be playing from week 1. He's somebody else who had a tremendous combine performance, which has really boosted his stock. And his size and physicality mean he's an absolute mismatch downfield against certain defensive backs. So he's somebody that has that potential to really excel. And throw into the mix, he's really tough to bring down as well. He's a bit of a fearsome prospect. The weaknesses for him is that he's never had the production. He had 4 games under 15 yards in 2025. Now, is that a criticism of him? Possibly, but it's also, you have to take into account Stanford's offense, and it's an offense that was struggling from what I understand. He's probably somebody who's going to go in the 3rd or 4th round, and so he could end up in a decent attack. I'd love to see him, for example, end up at the Patriots with Drake May. That would be a phenomenal landing spot for him, and could see him getting good game time behind a good quarterback. I think he's got the skill set to be a beast at NFL level, and I think that some head coaches might fall in love with him. So he's someone out of this group that I might take a punt on in drafts. And again, landing spot dependent. Someone who could have some fancy relevance, but who knows?
I think he's a player that I struggle to be quite so hopeful on, because it just seems to be easily read by defenses all the time. And when he's kind of up in his speed, but the number of times just his routes come to absolutely nothing because he's blocked at the first opportunity is a little bit of a concern. And once again, we've said it for so many of these players, is that going to be coachable? That remains to be seen. But you're right, he's got some of those raw traits that could be really helpful. And never underestimate, for a tight end especially, being a great blocker, how many extra opportunities to be on the field that gives you. And as you say, if you're on the field, you can get the ball. If you get the ball, you get some fantasy points. And that's what we are here to hopefully acquire. Finally, then, Ed, our fifth tight end. Who have you selected?
Yeah, number 5, we've gone for Michael Trigg out of Baylor. 6'4", 240 pounds. He's averaged over 13 yards per reception across the last 2 years for Baylor. Proved to be a real red zone threat as well. He's another, as we've come to expect at tight end, another phenomenal athlete. He looks like a wide receiver, not as big as a couple of the other prospects. Both on paper and when you see him on film and in person, he looks like a receiver. He's got long arms, like ridiculously long arms. Like we were watching tape of him earlier, and we were comparing them to our arms, and he's got very long arms. So they're a huge wingspan, big hands as well. So he can make some phenomenal grabs. Again, very difficult to bring down once he's built up ahead of speed. And he is also a solid blocker. Not quite in the Roush blocking level, but he may struggle against elite NFL defenses. But yeah, he's a solid blocker. Areas he might struggle: contested catches can be an issue. He doesn't always come off well when engaged by DBs. He's easily put off and can make some drops where you'd expect him, and you'd hope your tight end could be that kind of nailed on kind of 4 or 5 yard catch. That would be a worry for me. He's someone who'll probably go in a similar sort of area to Roush, 3rd or 4th round pick. I think he will have a solid NFL career. He does have a big upside as a receiver, and he is someone like Roush I'll be keeping a close eye on in rookie drafts. I do wonder if he might be converted to a receiver. I don't know, but I think there are teams that are in need of a tight end and a receiver. So maybe he might even go a bit higher. Fantasy relevant would be a push in his first year, but as we've said, there are tight ends further down the list who do go on to be fantasy relevant in the first year, and he might be one of them.
I have 2 red flags that I want to mention. Firstly, when he gets any contact to defensive pressure, there's times that he almost forgets or abandons the route he was doing. And we've spoken about football IQ in a positive way a lot. I wonder whether that's a lack of football IQ and being able to keep committed to what he's doing and read what's coming up and adjust. The biggest red flag, though, is if you've got a 0 on your shirt, you should absolutely be a round 1 pick. Why on earth has he got a 0 when you're not a round 1 pick?
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Always on my radar.
Was it one of the receivers had a 0 as well, and you didn't mention that in the receiver show?
That slipped by.
But I suppose if they were a round 1 pick, you might have allowed it. But yeah, if you're not a round 1 pick, I knew you were going to pick up on the 0. He might not be allowed to wear the 0 wherever he ends up.
He shouldn't be. You can only wear a 0 if you are.
Well, they let absolute losers like Roquan Smith wear it.
That's if you're Roquan Smith, you can wear 0. If you're Roquan Smith, you can wear no number at all if you wish.
Oh, I love your Roquan.
Right, that brings us to the end of our rookie tight end preview. Anything you would like to add before we wrap things up?
I'll just throw in another few names, not say anything about them, but I like all of their names. Justin Jolly, Oscar Delp, and Tanner Koziol are all other tight ends that I had a look at that might creep up draft boards. So I'm just saying those names because if they have a breakout, I can say that I mentioned them.
Fingers crossed Mr. Jolly does. He would be a lovely
Jolly would be amazing
in Heroes or Zeros.
Amazing.
Right, that is all from us then. We'll be back in a few days with Rich Cooling of the Fantasy Sanctuary, Mr. Dynasty Island himself, to talk about some rookie sleepers. That's all from me. It's all from Ed. So as usual, ta-ta and farewell.